everybody, it's Chris and I'm back again here in the Dyno Pro Car. Just a really quick recap on what we did. If you saw the previous video, you know you're taking this FAST LSXHR intake off and we ported it real quick. Now there was only so much meat we could pour it around, so we needed about to take 200 thousandths off on the roof, and we could only do about 120. So we didn't get as much out as we would like. Supporting it in with this particular setup that we have here really didn't show any gains. I mean, overall, like 1 horsepower. It picked up just a slight bit of acceleration up top as well, but it wasn't anything significant that I wouldn't suggest taking the time to actually do it with this particular setup, because we already do get great performance out of it. But in this particular case, the porting really didn't help us that much. So can't say it was worth it, honestly. But it was worth a shot, and we tried it. And I think that information will help you in the future too, with a cylinder head like this and a camshaft like what we're running. And you know, again, you can buy this package from us. So we're actually going to try another intake manifold that somebody brought us and dropped off. And we'll give a good comparison when we're all said and done. I'll probably go up front and we'll lay out the intakes just all in a row of what we tried with different intakes and the set of heads that we tried and the camshaft, and just sort of do a brief overview real quick and a recap of everything. There's been questions about the acceleration rate and what was the overall average, where it picked up, things like that. So I'll try to mention some of that stuff real quick as well and keep these videos a little bit short. I realize time is money for people, so I appreciate you watching them. But if you do want some more detailed information, we can get into some of that information. One of the big things I'm noticing with these, like the high ramp style intakes, and even the FAST LSXHR intake, is when we went from the original factory truck intake, you look at the torque curve, and right at 4,500, there's just a slight little dip. And the truck intake, it's like 5 foot-pounds of torque or 3 foot-pounds of torque dip and back. When you get into these intakes, changes airspeed dynamics, and at 4,500 you notice that dip to be more significant. I mean, I'm talking like this one and the Holly high ram. Right at 4,500 you'll see a dip of like 30 foot-pounds of torque, and it comes right back. It's climbing, then it goes down, dips, and right at 4,500 it comes back. And it's a gradual, you know, curve. Well, you can look at that, and we're looking at the airspeed characteristics, and there's a turbulence section in there that, you know, you're not going to notice it so much, but those are the kind of things we get into fine-tuning engines. Like if you look at like a Pro Stock engine, something that's super crisp with the headers tuned with the intake manifold, and when you look at that and it revs and it's just crisp and clean, and it takes a lot of time and energy, because to give you some idea, on an intake manifold for one of our high-end race applications, we'll have 100 hours in labor just in doing the intake manifold and what we do to it. You know, granted, you can CNC a lot of that stuff today. So, but when we're testing and we're figuring things out, yeah, we'll have like 100 hours and just getting an intake ready, for example, to do what we want to do and move things the way we want to move it. And you just have to remember one thing. The key component is, what is that? Is air has no eyes, right? So everything becomes a variable when the air enters in here, where it's going to go and what it's going to do and how it's going to act, right? So that's where the magic comes in, and that's where your high-level racing teams spend a lot of time analyzing and figuring out. One, again, it's all about airspeed. So we try to keep our airspeeds up. The key is airspeed. We'll sacrifice a little bit of CFM to get more airspeed, because now we can fill so much more into that cylinder. So this is your typical street application. Like I said, you know, how we just now achieved, you know, we're just a touch over 200, but we got good mid-range torque. You know, we started with I think it was actually 446 foot-pounds. And now we're up to just a little bit over 500. And if we use the LSXR in this build for the car, we're at 520 foot-pounds of torque, right around 4,500, 4,000 to 4,500. So it's one of those things where you just have to fine tune it for the application. But this experience has been really good because now we truly know what this cylinder head will do with this combination as you buy today. With whichever intake you would use, you can buy the intake from us. Obviously, we're dealers with, you know, Comcams, Holley, all of that. We do support those products and we test those products that we're running because we like to know what we're talking about. So we know comfortably we can get, we got 599 horsepower, okay? So if you're stuck on a number, which we're not so much stuck on numbers, I'm stuck on how much I can improve what I started with. But when you see the gains that we have, we went from 396 on a stock engine to 599 horsepower and picked up torque in that mid-range and upper end as well. That's pretty damn good. And our acceleration picked up in the higher RPM, especially with an intake like this. I mean, you know, we're hitting areas of over 500 RPMs per second. So, you know, that's really good numbers and that's really good information. And the key is that feeling it, and what you're going to feel is that acceleration. And when you hit that throttle and it takes off and you get right into that power band, it's just going to accelerate on, and you're going to feel that. And so that's where we spend a lot of our time. But I want to give you a quick update on what we just did. We had just ported this thing and took some out of it. Like I said, we were able to take about 120 thou out on the intake runners to match up to our port. We would have liked to have got a little bit more to really truly have a smooth transition, but there's just not enough meat down here, quite honestly, to do that with. So I'm actually going to talk fast about that and see if they can't make some changes, because it would be nice to be able to port that a little bit better, honestly. So anyhow, I appreciate your time. Quick update for you on this. Again, thank you Comcams for sending this out so fast to us, and so we could test it, and then we're going to continue testing with it on some other applications. So stay tuned. We'll be sharing more information with you, and I'll do a recap of everything we did with this LS3 MVT370 package. And talk to you soon. Thanks again.